Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift, like people were smiling, but something behind those smiles felt fake? Have you ever wondered why certain people avoid you, talk behind your back, or simply can't stand to be around you, but you don't even know why? If that question stung a little, keep watching. This video might just save your social life and maybe even your love life. Before we dive into the heart of the matter, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you're interested in using Stoic philosophy to better your life, relationships, and self-awareness. And I urge you to watch this video till the end, because understanding the truth behind why people secretly hate you isn't just about ego, it's about growth. It's about seeing yourself clearly, something Marcus Aurelius practiced daily. Now let's set the stage with a bit of context. Marcus Aurelius, one of the last great Stoic emperors of Rome, faced hatred, betrayal, and public criticism constantly. He was the most powerful man in the known world, yet even he couldn't escape being disliked. What did he do about it? He didn't complain. He didn't chase approval. Instead, he turned inward. In Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find out why people react to you the way they do, and how to stop pushing them away without even knowing it." Let's explore 9 reasons people secretly hate you through the lens of Stoic wisdom and 10 suggestions from Marcus Aurelius that can help you turn it all around. 1. You talk too much and listen too little.
Have you ever been in love?
Not the kind of love where you send heart emojis and good morning texts. I'm talking about the kind where their silence feels louder than any argument, where a moment of distance feels like a whole lifetime of separation. Now think back. Was there a time, maybe just once, where someone you loved stopped talking to you? Not out of anger, but out of quiet exhaustion? It's a hard pill to swallow, I know, because when someone leaves, we often ask, what happened? But the real question is, what didn't I hear? You see, this is one of the most silent reasons people begin to hate you, even when they once loved you deeply. You talk too much and listen too little. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him Theo. He was deeply in love with a woman named Lena. Theo adored Lena. He wrote her poems. He brought her flowers. He told her every day how much he loved her. But Theo had a flaw. He always had something to say, but never had the patience to listen. When Lena came home exhausted, wanting to vent, Theo cut her off with advice. When she cried silently, he filled the room with words instead of holding space. When she wanted to share her dreams, he turned the conversation back to himself. He never meant to hurt her, but every time he didn't listen, she felt a little more unseen, a little more unheard, a little more alone. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." A good man, a good woman, a good human listens. Lena eventually stopped talking, and when she left, she didn't leave with anger. She left with a silence that spoke of 1,000 unheard moments. Ask yourself, have you ever done that? Has someone ever slowly pulled away? Not because you were cruel, but because you never truly listened? Love isn't built on grand speeches. It's built in the moments where you pause and let someone else breathe, where you put your ego aside and just listen without fixing, without interrupting, without waiting for your turn to talk. Because when you don't listen, people don't feel loved. They feel dismissed. They feel like furniture in a room that only reflects your voice. And here's the truth, if someone doesn't feel heard, eventually they'll stop talking to you. And after that, they'll start talking about you to others with resentment. So if someone you loved has gone quiet lately, if their eyes don't light up around you like they used to, maybe it's time to ask, did I really listen? Or did I just wait to speak? Remember, the most powerful words in love aren't "I love you." They're, "I hear you, I'm here, and I care." Don't lose the love of your life to the sound of your own voice. 2. You make everything about you. Can I ask you something a little uncomfortable? When your partner shared something emotional with you, something raw, vulnerable, maybe even painful, did you ever interrupt? Just to say, "Yeah, I totally get it." That reminds me of the time be honest. It seems harmless, right? You're trying to connect, trying to show empathy. But deep down, were you really listening? Or were you just waiting for your turn? Let me take you into a story, one you might recognize in your own life. There was a girl named Anaya. She had been through a rough patch, losing her job, dealing with anxiety, feeling like the world was caving in. Her boyfriend Arjun loved her, no question about that. He thought he was doing his best. So one evening when she finally broke down and shared her pain, instead of just holding space for her, he said, "Yeah, I know how that feels. Last year I was so stressed about my business, man, I couldn't sleep." "I totally get it." Anaya blinked, smiled faintly, and went quiet. He thought he helped. But what she really felt was, even now, it's still about him. That's the quiet resentment people build. That's when love begins to erode, not from betrayal, but from emotional loneliness. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be occupied only with what is in your power, and what's in your power is this: make space for others, without trying to center yourself." When someone is opening up, they're not looking for a story swap. They're asking, "Will you hold this with me? Will you be present enough to feel it with me?" So let me ask you, have you ever turned someone else's pain into your stage, even in love? Even with the best of intentions? Think about it. Your partner tells you about their childhood trauma, and you talk about yours. They express their fears, and you remind them of your struggles. They finally break the silence, and you break the moment by shifting it back to you. You might not even realize you're doing it, but to them it feels like being invisible. And that's the beginning of quiet hate. Not hate in the loud, angry way, but the kind that slowly replaces love with resentment. Here's what Marcus Aurelius would say: be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. It means don't be so quick to insert yourself into every moment. Sometimes love is just being quiet enough for someone else to be heard completely. So if someone once close to you has become distant, ask yourself, did I really listen to them? Or did I just make their pain part of my own script? Because love isn't about being the center. Love is about creating a safe place for someone else to breathe, feel, and heal without interruption. 3. You're passive-aggressive and expect mind reading. Have you ever laid in bed beside the person you love, both facing opposite directions, in total silence? Not because there's nothing to say, but because you're hoping they'll figure it out on their own. You're hurt. You're angry. You want them to know. But instead of saying it, you sigh louder, slam the door a little harder. You give one-word answers like, "I'm fine," and maybe they ask, "What's wrong?" But you answer nothing, even though inside, everything is screaming. If you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the slow poison that kills relationships without a sound. Passive aggression, and the expectation that they should read your mind. Let me tell you about someone. His name was Kabir. Kabir loved deeply, but he never said what he felt. When his girlfriend Mira forgot their anniversary, he didn't tell her it hurt. He just went quiet, cold. He brought up a random story about people who forget important things. He joked bitterly. He said, "It's fine. I don't care about stuff like that." But Mira, she was confused. And every day after that, he pulled back a little more, until the silence between them became louder than any fight they could have had. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't assume they know. Tell them plainly." Because the truth is, no one can love a mystery. If someone has to decode your feelings like a puzzle, they'll eventually stop trying. Here's what happens when you expect someone to read your mind. They feel like they're always guessing. They walk on eggshells. And eventually, they grow tired of trying to please someone who won't just say, "What's wrong?" Passive aggression isn't clever. It's not romantic. It's a wall disguised as vulnerability. You think you're teaching them a lesson, but what you're really doing is teaching them that your love comes with punishment and confusion. Ask yourself, how many times could you have saved your love story just by saying, "That hurt me. I needed you and you weren't there. I expected more and I should have told you." Instead, how many times did you say, "I'm fine. Do whatever you want. It's whatever"? If this sounds like your story, know this. You don't lose love in explosions. You lose it in cold silences, in unspoken expectations, in the belief that love should be guessed, not expressed. Marcus Aurelius believed in clear intention, in choosing honesty over assumption. So the next time your heart is hurting, don't hope they'll read your mind. Give them the gift of your truth, before your silence becomes the reason they walk away. 4. You're always negative, the emotional leech. Have you ever been so in love with someone, but every time you were around them, you felt tired? Not because they hurt you, not because they shouted or cheated, but because every moment with them felt like carrying the weight of their world while your own was already heavy. If you've ever loved someone like that, or been someone like that, this might be hard to hear. Because this next reason why people secretly hate you is the most silent and overlooked one. You're always negative. You've become an emotional leech. Now before you take offense, just breathe. This isn't about blaming. This is about recognizing. Let me tell you about Ria and Dev. When they first fell in love, Ria was a light, full of dreams, jokes, laughter. Dev was drawn to her energy like a moth to a flame. But over time, Ria changed. Every conversation became a complaint. Every day started with what went wrong. Every moment they shared was clouded by her fears, her stress, her pessimism. Dev tried. God knows he did. He listened. He reassured. He supported. But slowly he began to shrink. Her negativity wasn't just a mood. It became the atmosphere they lived in. And here's the painful part. Ria never saw it. She thought she was just being real. But in her version of real, there was no room left for hope, for gratitude, for light. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." And when you constantly radiate negativity, when every conversation feels like drowning in someone else's misery, eventually people stop swimming towards you, they swim away. Ask yourself this: when your partner shares good news, do you celebrate it? Or do you immediately compare it to something bad that happened to you? When they laugh, do you let them laugh? Or do you bring up something that steals that joy? Negativity is infectious, but worse, it's exhausting. No one wants to feel like they're responsible for dragging you out of the darkness every single day. That's not love. That's emotional labor. We all go through pain. That's part of life. But when your pain becomes your personality, when you wear your wounds like a badge, you push people away. Love isn't just about showing up. It's about what you bring when you show up. So ask yourself, do you bring light or a storm? Do people feel heavier after talking to you or lighter? Because if they feel drained, used, or emotionally suffocated, they might still care about you, but they'll also start resenting you. And eventually, they'll leave. Not because they don't love you, but because loving you felt like slowly drowning. Don't let that happen. Learn to carry your own darkness so others don't have to carry it for you. You manipulate with guilt. Have you ever said to someone you love, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me"? Maybe you didn't mean to manipulate them. Maybe you just wanted them to understand your pain, but instead what they felt was guilt. Let me tell you about Ishan and Tara. They'd been together for 3 years. Ishan had been there through Tara's family problems, her breakdowns, her worst nights. He gave his time, his money, his soul. But somewhere along the way, his love turned into a scorecard. Every argument ended with, "I gave you everything. Do you even realize what I sacrificed?" I was there when no one else was. At first, Tara felt terrible. She apologized. She tried harder. But with each guilt trip, something inside her began to die. Because love, when wrapped in guilt, doesn't feel like love anymore. It feels like emotional blackmail. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A wrongdoer is often a man who has left something undone, not always one who has done something." Sometimes the greatest wrong we do in love is forcing someone to repay a love we were supposed to give freely. Think about this. When you give love, do you expect something in return? Do you bring up your sacrifices just to win an argument? Do you make them feel indebted for staying? If yes, that's not affection. That's a transaction, and no one wants to stay in a relationship where love feels like a debt they'll never be able to pay back. You see, guilt is subtle. It hides in, "I guess I don't matter." It sneaks into, "You didn't even think of me." It sounds like after all I did for you, but every time you weaponize your sacrifices, you're turning love into a prison. The truth? If you gave something from your heart, it was a gift, not a bargaining chip. And if you only gave it so they'd owe you something later, it was never truly love. Ask yourself, has anyone ever stayed with you out of guilt instead of joy? Have they ever whispered to themselves, "I can't leave. I'd hurt them too much"? Because that's not connection, that's control. Love should feel like freedom, not a contract, not a scoreboard, not a guilt trip. So here's your moment of reflection. Next time you feel like reminding someone of everything you've done for them, pause, breathe, ask yourself, am I doing this to be heard or to make them feel bad enough to stay? There's a fine line between expressing your needs and emotionally cornering someone. And if you cross that line too many times, you don't just lose love, you lose respect. 6. You're too clingy. Love without space. Have you ever loved someone so much that you wanted to be with them all the time? Every moment apart felt like something was missing. You needed their voice, their texts, their presence. Constantly. It felt romantic. It felt like passion. But over time, it started to feel like panic. Like if they didn't reply in 5 minutes, your heart sank. Like if they went out without you, your mind spun in circles. If you've felt that before, or if you're feeling it right now, this story might sound painfully familiar. Let me tell you about Arav and Myra. Ara was the kind of guy who loved hard. He wanted to be her everything. Her morning, her night, her world. At first, Myra felt lucky. She thought, wow, no one's ever loved me like this. But soon the messages became constant. Where are you? Why didn't you answer?
Who are you with?
If she didn't respond quickly, he'd spiral. If she wanted a day to herself, he'd say, do you even love me anymore? And slowly, what began as affection turned into suffocation. Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Arav's thoughts were full of fear of losing her, and that fear painted his love in the color of desperation. You see, there's a fine line between closeness and control. We think love means being inseparable. But the truth is, healthy love breathes. Space isn't distance. Silence isn't rejection. Independence isn't betrayal. When you love someone, it's easy to confuse attention with affection. But being clingy isn't about love, it's about insecurity. Wearing love's costume. And the more you cling, the more the other person pulls away. Ask yourself this. Do you feel anxious when they're not around? Do you demand constant updates? Do you feel like their world should revolve around you? If so, you're not loving them. You're trying to own them, and no one wants to feel owned. People don't leave when you stop texting for a few hours. They leave when they feel they can't breathe without triggering your panic. Love is like a flame, it needs oxygen. Too much closeness and you smother it. So remember, giving space doesn't mean you love them less. It means you trust them more. Let them miss you. Let them grow on their own. Let them be a whole person, not just your other half. Because when you love someone, right, you don't hold them tight out of fear. You hold them gently, knowing they choose to stay. 7. You're emotionally unavailable, present but distant. Have you ever laid next to someone you love and still felt completely alone? Not because they weren't there physically, but because emotionally it felt like talking to a wall. They smiled, they nodded, but you could feel it. They weren't really with you. Now here's the tough part. What if that person was you? Let me take you into a story, a quiet, heartbreaking one. Zoya loved Kabir with her whole soul. She was expressive, thoughtful, always looking for connection. But Kabir, he was like a closed book with no pages. When she shared her feelings, he'd say, "You're overthinking." When she cried, he'd reply, "Why are you being so emotional again?" She longed to feel held, not just in arms, but in understanding. But Kabir built a wall around his emotions. He thought staying strong meant staying silent. He believed love was shown through actions like paying the bills, fixing things, being present. But Zoya didn't just want his time. She wanted his heart, and that's where it hurt most. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't just say you love others, show it in how you live." And love isn't just about showing up physically, it's about showing up emotionally. Kabir didn't cheat. He didn't lie. He didn't leave. But he also never opened up, never shared his fears, never sat down and asked her, "How are you, really?" And so she felt more alone with him than she ever did by herself. Ask yourself now, do you hold your feelings in because you're afraid of looking weak? Have people ever told you, "You never open up," or "I don't know what you're feeling"? You may think you're protecting yourself, but the truth? You're pushing them away little by little. Love without vulnerability is just proximity. Two bodies near, but two hearts miles apart. And I know opening up is hard. Maybe your past made you believe that emotions are dangerous, that people leave when you're too soft. That strength means staying silent. But here's what no one told you. Emotional availability is not weakness. It's courage. To say, "I'm scared." To say, "I don't know." To say, "I need you right now." That kind of love is brave. So if you're with someone right now, and you haven't let them see the real you, not the surface version, not the role you play, but the soft, scared, honest you, then ask yourself, are you really loving them? Or just performing love beside them? Because no one wants to feel alone in a relationship. And silence over time becomes emotional abandonment. Don't be the ghost in someone's love story. Be the presence they feel, even when you say nothing.
8. You're too jealous. Poisoned by insecurity.
Be honest with yourself for a second. Have you ever looked through your partner's phone when they weren't watching? Have you ever felt a burning knot in your stomach just because they laughed at someone else's joke? Have you ever said, I trust you? It's just them I don't trust? Now let me ask you something deeper. Was it really about them? Or about you? Let me tell you a story, one that might sound familiar. Arnav and Ria were picture perfect on the outside. They smiled in photos, held hands in public, shared matching bios on social media. But behind that filtered love, there was something rotting. Jealousy. It started small. Arnav would ask, "Who were you texting? Why did you like his photo? Why didn't you answer for 10 minutes?" At first, Ria thought it was cute. He must really love her, right? He must care so much. But over time, that care began to feel like a cage. He'd show up unannounced. He'd question her friends. He'd accuse her of things that lived only in his imagination. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And Arnav's thoughts were soaked in fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing her. Fear that maybe she'd find someone better. But here's the twist. It wasn't Ria who was unfaithful. It was Arnav's own insecurity that betrayed their love. Because jealousy doesn't protect love, it strangles it. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. You torture yourself with imaginary scenarios. And eventually the one you love walks away. Not because they cheated, but because they were tired of proving they hadn't. Ask yourself right now, have you ever pushed someone away by trying to hold them too tight? Have you ever punished someone for crimes they never committed? Jealousy feels like love in disguise, but it's really fear, dressed up in a romantic mask. Real love doesn't ask, "Where were you?" It asks, "How can I make you feel safe with me?" Because love isn't about surveillance. It's about trust. Yes, you might have been hurt before. Yes, someone might have betrayed your faith in the past. But this person in front of you, they're not your past. Don't make them pay for someone else's mistakes. You know what the irony is? Most people don't leave because they found someone else. They leave because they're tired of being treated like they already did. So if you're carrying jealousy in your heart right now, not the kind that flares and fades, but the kind that whispers lies in your ear every day, maybe it's time to heal. Before you break something beautiful, 9, you feel entitled to their love. Love is not owed, it's earned. Have you ever thought to yourself, after everything I've done for them, they owe me their love? Or maybe, I've been here since the beginning, so they should stay with me. Now pause for a second. Close your eyes. Think about your first love, or maybe your current one. Remember those early days? The butterflies, the long talks, the way their eyes lit up when they saw you. Remember how you felt you had to earn that smile? How you tried to be your best self just to keep their attention? But somewhere along the way, something changed. Let me tell you about Isha and Dev. Dev was there from the start. When Isha had nothing, he stood beside her. He helped her through storms. He made sacrifices. He showed up. And in his mind, that meant one thing. She belonged to him now. So when Isha began growing, finding new interests, spending more time with herself, Dev grew bitter. He'd say, "After all I've done, how can you need space? After how much I've given, how can you question my love?" But here's the painful truth. Love is not a debt. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Love only what happens, and what happens is what was meant to be." Dev didn't love Isha in the present. He loved the idea that because he had once been good to her, she had to stay, even if she was no longer happy. And that's not love. That's entitlement. Think about it. Have you ever held on to someone just because you feel they should be yours? Because you invested time, effort, or emotions? But people are not bank accounts. You don't get loyalty just because you made deposits in the past. Love must be continually earned, not collected like favors. When you start thinking, "They owe me their heart," you stop giving love and start demanding it. And no one, no matter how loyal, how kind, how loving, wants to be someone's obligation. Ask yourself this: would you want someone to stay with you just because they feel guilty? Or because they choose to stay every single day? There's a sacred beauty in someone choosing you freely, not because they owe you, not because they're trapped, but because they want to. So if you've been keeping score of who gave more, who sacrificed more, burn the scoreboard. Show up as your best self, not to get love back, but because love deserves your best regardless. Entitlement turns love into a transaction. But real love? It's a gift that must be unwrapped again every single day. Now let's look at 10 Marcus Aurelius suggestions to reverse the hatred and build the kind of character that draws people in, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you've become truly noble. 1. Cultivate inner stillness. Aurelius. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you calm your mind, you calm your presence. People are drawn to those who feel grounded. 2. Let actions speak louder. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't over-explain yourself. Live your values. Consistency will win you quiet admiration. 3. Serve without expecting praise. Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life. Give without keeping score. People gravitate toward those who love without conditions. 4. Practice compassion toward flaws. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. Expect imperfections from others and from yourself. It allows you to forgive more quickly and hate less deeply. 5. Be present and fully engaged. Confine yourself to the present. People feel valued when you give them your full attention. Presence is a rare and precious gift. 6. Stop pleasing. Start living. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Live authentically. Don't be molded by others' opinions. The people who truly matter will stay. 7. Embrace simplicity and modesty. Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. No need to flaunt, exaggerate, or boast. Confidence rooted in humility is irresistible. 8. Build character, not a reputation. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Focus on being good, not just looking good. Reputation fades. Character stays. 9. Accept that some will hate you anyway. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. You can't please everyone, and that's okay. Some hatred is projection. Don't carry their shadows as your truth. 10. Choose love over ego. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Respond to hatred not with bitterness but with dignity. It confuses your enemies and inspires your friends. In the end, Marcus Aurelius showed us that hatred is not always about us. Sometimes it's a mirror, sometimes it's a teacher. But if we're wise, we'll use even that hatred to refine who we are. Because the goal is not to be liked everyone, the goal is to be the kind of person that your future self would admire. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.